Good morning from Delighted Acres Farm. I know that you all haven't seen me a whole lot on here. Um, Life has been busy the last couple of years, but we are trying to get back into our garden a little bit this fall, and so I just wanted to share some about that while I'm working on that this morning. Um, so, a couple years ago, we had put in some no-till beds. We laid down cardboard and then made like 6-inch tall deep beds with compost just by piling that compost on top of the cardboard. And then we made some walkways. We put some cedar mulch down for some walkways between those beds. And we had a pretty decent garden that year. But then life kind of got in the way. We had some other things that we needed to work on. And the following year, we decided not to do a garden, and the garden just got overrun with weeds. It was just horrible. And so that was kind of discouraging as well. And just a number of other things happened that were just kind of discouraging with actually trying to grow a garden. But this fall, I'm a little inspired to try to grow something, just to try to figure it out here. Gardening in Oklahoma has been a little frustrating for me because the environment's so different, the climate is so different. It's much drier here, it's much hotter here. We can have 30, 60, 90-day stretches of 100-degree days, and that's just really hard on plants, and it's hard to grow things. But there's ways around it, and I've been doing some research and trying to figure out, what we might be able to do to help that. And another issue that we deal with a lot is grasshoppers. We have a lot of grasshoppers, and especially in the high heat of summer, they just decimate anything that's edible. And so anything I've tried to grow in the last year or two, a lot of times it gets eaten by the grasshoppers. But like I said, there are ways around that. There are things we can do. And I've been doing a little bit of research, bought a couple of things that I think will help. And so this year we're going to try to do just a little bit of a fall garden, growing a few different crops, and just see if some of the ideas that I have are going to work for us to try to have a garden here in the future. And so what I'm doing is right now, we had a couple years ago, as part of our garden, we set up some wicking tubs using feed tubs. And for the last couple years, they've just sat. They've gone through the weather, they've gone through all the seasons, they've sat. Of course, they're full of, dead weeds and all kinds of things right now. So right now, I'm cleaning up these tubs because in order to get a fall garden in, we need to get stuff planted now. We've only got our first estimated frost is October 26th. And so very short time to grow a few things that will do well in a fall garden. But that means we need to have some beds, we need to have some containers ready now. So I'm working today to get these containers cleaned up because I don't think we have time to make an in-ground bed. It's just going to take too much time. It's much easier to clean up these containers, condition the soil, put some fertilizer in there, get them ready for planting, and then plant them hopefully today or tomorrow. So I'll show you real quick what these look like. So these are the beds the containers that we're going to work with for this little fall garden. They've been sitting out here for a couple years, pretty much in the same spot. And of course, you can see all the dead plant matter from weeds that have grown in them, things like that. But this little bit right here, these, I've already started cleaning up. And that's what I'm doing at this point. I'm just cleaning these out. And then I'm going to take the hand truck and move them over here, which is where our water spigot is. And I'm going to create a couple like groups of them, and I'll show you why in a little while. Okay, so as you can see, I have cleaned up these tubs. Didn't get that middle one yet, but I can't really get to it very well. Cleaned up all the tubs, and I have started to move them over here. Zoom in there a little bit. And what I'm going to do is create 2 beds, if you will. It'll be 2 rows of the tubs right next to each other. 10 tubs total, 5 in each row. And we have enough to do 2 beds like that. So there'll be like a walkway here, and then we'll do another 2 rows of tubs. And then I think I have a few more tubs than that, so we'll see what we get to at that point. But the reason for that is because I'm going to put some insect netting. I'm going to put some hoops over those beds and put some insect netting on to help keep grasshoppers out. So that's one of my strategies now that we're going to try. So that's where we're at right now, and we'll keep going. Okay, so the first bed, if you will, the first group of tubs is in place. So just kind of give you a look there. And then I still need to move most of those over. Some of them I'm not going to use right now. They have little bits of plastic in the soil, and I think I just want to replace the soil completely. The reason that there's little bits of plastic, a couple years ago, the garden beds that we had in place, the no-till beds, we covered all of that with clear plastic to try to kill off the grass. There was a specific reason we used clear plastic. I know most people will say use black plastic, but there is a process of using clear plastic that basically kills off the grass as well. But the thing is, you have to have it sealed to the ground. You can't let any air get in there. And what happens is with the sun, it creates like a greenhouse effect under that plastic. And then it makes everything grow, but then it gets too hot and it kills everything. So that was what was supposed to happen. The problem was life got in the way, and we left the plastic on over winter and into the next spring. And if you know anything about central Oklahoma, you know that it is incredibly windy, and plastic like that and wind don't mix. And so the plastic basically just got tore up. And so unfortunately that means that there's little bits of plastic in the yard, and there probably will be for a long time. Kind of frustrated that we did that now and that we didn't pull it off in time, but you can't change the past. All you can do is go forward and try to do better. So anyway, all of that to say, like, there's a few of those tubs over there. It seems to be quite a bit of little bits of plastic in there. And so I think I want to try to get that out as much as possible before I use them. So all of that to say, we're not going to use a few of those for this purpose right now. So anyway, next step is to get the next bed or group of tubs moved over. So the second bed or group of containers is started. I actually want to add 5 more tubs to that group there, the white group. So I started this about almost 9 o'clock. It's like 10:20 now, and while it doesn't feel too horrible out here, I need a break. We are in the 90s right now. The wind is helping at the moment. Sometimes the wind isn't helpful. It makes it feel more hot. Right now it is cooling things down a little bit as I'm standing here. But I am going to take a break. Go inside, cool off a little bit, get some water, maybe a little something to eat. And then we'll see if I come back out and when I come back out today. So trying to get this accomplished, but also take into consideration that our highs right now are in the low hundreds, and just it's not worth my health, but it's not worth getting heat stroke or anything over. So I'm being careful, being very mindful of how I feel. I'm taking it slow. But right now, I'm just going to take a break and we'll be back at this later. All right, so I am back out here now. It's probably about 3 hours. I just took a good amount of time inside to cool off, ate some lunch, rested, recovered a little bit. But I'm back out here now, and just in the last 20 minutes, I have been able to move over 4 more tubs. So I was able to move over these 4 green tubs, and you probably can't see it very well, but way up there near the house, my big finger, there's 2 more tubs, and they're going to be added here. And so once I get that done, that'll be the end of moving things into the garden space. However, because I am pacing myself, and I've been out here working for about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, whatever, and we are approaching 100 degrees. It's the middle of the day. It's hot. I'm going to take a break for a few minutes, and I kind of prepared myself to take breaks outside this afternoon. So over here underneath our beautiful tree, I've got my chair set up. I've got some water I'm going to take over there, and I'm going to take a break for a few minutes. So while I'm sitting here taking my break, I keep feeling like I should talk about a few things. I don't know if you would call it wisdom, life advice, whatever you want to call it. Just keep thinking about a few things and thinking that maybe I should share. So I guess the first thing I keep thinking of while I have been working on this project this morning is perseverance. Perseverance can be hard. When you have goals, you have dreams, things you want to see come to pass, you're willing to put the work into doing what it takes to get there, but you have failure after failure after failure, setback. It can be discouraging, and that's kind of how I feel about the garden. It's been a little bit discouraging for me since we moved here. Number one, because like I talked about earlier, because gardening here is very different. There are very different challenges here than there were in Ohio, which is where I'm from, which is where I grew up and lived most of my life. It's very different. And so for me, in the beginning, it was very frustrating because I didn't want to have to invest in other infrastructure. I didn't want to have to invest in insect netting or shade cloth or, I don't know, just other infrastructure. To me, you put a garden bed in, whether it's in ground or a raised bed, we've done that before in Ohio, and get your soil in there, get your seeds in or your starts in, and keep it watered. Obviously, plants need water even there when they, even though Ohio gets more rain than Oklahoma. And it's pretty good. Yes, there are pests there. Yes, there are other things to deal with, like in some cases, if your garden's in a more low-lying area, you may deal with too much water in your garden, and that's a problem too. But anyway, so when we first moved here, I didn't think it would be that much different than gardening in Ohio. I knew how hot and dry Oklahoma summers were because visiting here over the years in the summertime to visit John's family, but it's a whole different thing living here. So we've been here almost 5 years now. Our first year we did put in a garden, and it did relatively well because we kept it watered with soaker hoses and a timer. But because of the heat, the tomatoes, they were beautiful, big, lush green tomatoes, plants, but they would not set their blossoms. They would get all kinds of blossoms, and the blossoms would fall off. Because in the middle of Oklahoma summer, until you get into September-ish, your temperatures are typically over 90 degrees. On a lot of days, we reach the hundreds. Once you get over 90 degrees, tomatoes, the pollen becomes sterile. And so, because it's just too hot for it. And so they will not set their blossoms. And I found that incredibly frustrating, because what do you mean that I can't harvest tomatoes in July and August and September? So that was the first year. Some of the other things did okay, but not super great. The second year is when we tried the no-till beds, where we laid down cardboard and we made a bed on top of it, like a raised bed that doesn't have sides, with just compost. And some things grew in that very well. That was a good garden as well. The other thing we did aside from those raised beds was we used the tubs, the ones that I'm using today. We used those around the raised beds for tomato plants. Well, come to find out, the compost that I got, I should have done better research. I should have asked questions. I should have not been in such a hurry, for one thing. But come to find out, I'm pretty sure that compost had herbicides in it. And I knew that it came from, yard waste. That probably should have been my first clue. Like I said, I probably shouldn't have been in as much a hurry to get that ordered, to get our garden beds in. I was trying to do the right thing, though. But come to find out, we never tested it, but I'm like 99% sure there was herbicides in that compost, because our tomatoes, they grew a little bit, and then every single one of them, the leaves started to curl up, and that's a sign of herbicide damage. And tomatoes are particularly sensitive to that. Another plant, like one of the ways that you can kind of do a little bit of a test is to see if there's herbicides in the soil, is to plant beans, because beans sprout very quickly and they are also very sensitive to that, and they will shrivel. The leaves will shrivel on the beans. So anyway, so that year I would say it was 50-50. Like that, or while everything that we planted was in that compost that potentially had the herbicide residue in it, some plants are not sensitive to it. So does that mean that what we harvested probably had some herbicides in it? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know how that works. But we did get some harvest. We got some cabbage, we got some carrots, some squash from that garden. So that was second year. And then the third year, I guess it's been 2 years since we've had a garden. So the third year, we didn't have any garden at all because we had many other things that we needed to concentrate on. that summer. And we have lives. We have to work. We both work, and so there was no way for us to really take care of the other major projects that we needed to do and tend to a garden and, work and have our lives and everything. So anyway, that third year we didn't do a garden. And then last year we didn't do a garden either, partly because I was very, at the end of the third year, we had covered it with the plastic, like I was talking about earlier. And that ended up not being good because we weren't as diligent about taking it off when we needed to be. And like I talked about earlier, a lot of bits of plastic ended up all over the yard. So that was third year. Fourth summer, so last summer, I was still pretty discouraged about the plastic and trying to figure out what we could do about it, if anything. And I kind of just gave up. I didn't want to deal with it. Which it turned out being kind of okay, because last fall we had to have our septic tank replaced, and they ended up putting the lines right across where some of our garden beds ended, and that was fine. We were totally fine with them doing that way. There really was no better place to do it, so we were fine with that. But I'm kind of glad that I didn't do a garden last year, because they would have had to tear up those beds, and so it would have been bad if I'd had stuff planted in there. So anyway, so that was last year. I did try to grow some tomatoes in those pots close to the house last summer. We got a few off of them, but again, dealing with the tomato plants not setting fruit. So all of that to say, gardening in Oklahoma has been very frustrating for me. I did not foresee it being this frustrating. However, I still have a desire. I still want to grow at least more. I want to be able to grow beans to can and grow tomatoes to can and grow some stuff for fresh eating. And so I guess the lesson here is perseverance. If you want to do something, you need to persevere through all the setbacks, through all of the frustrations. If it's worth doing, it's worth doing. If you can't overcome setbacks, it wasn't that important to you. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And that's not the only thing in life that I've experienced setbacks in, but I guess just because that's the thing that I'm talking about today is the garden, I think I just wanted to share that. Like, if it's worth doing, it's worth you doing it, figuring it out, putting in the work. It may not look the way that you thought it was going to look. You may have to do more research. You may have to talk to people. You may have to learn things that you never thought you'd have to learn, But if it's worth doing, it's worth doing. I guess that's just the thing that's on my mind today. If you want to do something, get out there, do it, figure it out. Because if it's worth it, it's worth it. So that's all I wanted to share in my little rest I'm taking here. And so we'll get back to it in a little bit, and I'll keep moving those buckets over. Okay, so next up, all of these tubs, since they have sat for several years and have not had any fertilizer or compost added or anything like that, I need to add something to them. I was considering just also topping them off with soil, but I think for what I'm planting, which is beans and cabbage, I'm not going to worry about that too much, not this year at least. Also because I really want to get stuff in the ground so that it'll start growing and can be harvested in 60 days or so. So what I'm going to do, I already have this Garden Tone organic fertilizer. It's just a general herb and vegetable fertilizer. And so I'm going to use that. I'm going to add some to each of these pots. So that's the next step. Good morning, everyone. So we are back on the second day of my project to have a fall garden. As I'm talking, one of our ladies would like you to know that she is laying an egg. And Rusty would like you to know that someone is in his yard. So anyway, hopefully you heard that. One of the girls is laying an egg right now. That is called the egg song. Anyway, so it is Sunday morning. Yesterday, Saturday, I worked from about 8 o'clock until 10:30 or so. Took about a 3-hour break. I came back out for another couple hours, kind of pacing myself since that was the middle of the day. Kind of paced myself because it was pretty hot. So anyway, but once I went in after that couple of hours, I just decided it's really not gonna, well, I knew it was not gonna get any cooler until much later in the evening, and I just decided I was done for the day. So where I got yesterday was I got all of the tubs moved over, and I got one of the beds, the tubs in one of the beds. I added fertilizer and mixed it in. And so that's where I got. And when I went in yesterday, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to be done for the day. I'm going to relax the rest of the evening. And I'm going to get out early Sunday morning and work on it some before church. I normally wouldn't do anything like this because I consider Sundays a day of rest. Not that you can't do anything, but it's just not normal for me to get up that early on a Sunday. Usually I'm only up in time for church. But I decided because it was going to be so cool in the morning, that's a good time to work on it. And so I'm going to show you what I accomplished this morning. It's almost 9 o'clock, and so church starts at 10:30, and so I need time to go inside and get ready for church. So, but I'm going to show you what I accomplished this morning, which I'm pretty happy with. It wasn't exactly what I wanted to accomplish, but I'm working with what I got for now. So here we go. So this right here, starting at our spigot, is what I accomplished this morning. The main part of it. So this is the other bed, and what I accomplished here in these beds or these containers, I did break up the soil in some of them, and I added fertilizer. So I finished adding fertilizer to everything. One of the things with these containers, because they have sat so long, the soil is pretty dry. That just happens to a lot of things, a lot of containers and a lot of areas of the ground in Oklahoma in the summertime, because it is dry here. Because once we get past spring rains, we don't have as much rain in the summertime, and we have a lot of wind, and it dries everything out really easily. But what that means for the containers is a lot of times that soil becomes what's called hydrophobic. So what that means is you can water it. I could take stand over it with a hose and water it. And on the very top, it's going to look like it's all, moist and just full of water. But if you dig your hand in there, that soil underneath is still dry. And it's because it's just not absorbing that water. And the problem with that is then if you try to plant in that soil, the plants are not going to absorb the nutrients because the soil is not absorbing the water. You can rehydrate soil. Some ways to do that are you add organic matter to it. So compost, here, I'm going to flip back around. So you can add compost to it, add fertilizer like I've added, So sometimes the way that I will do that is to, like, if I get, some new bags of soil for that season, then I'll just top off old pots with soil. And I try to mix it into the top part of what was already there. And then the other thing is really like soaking that soil and mixing it up. So the water, like when you soak it for a while and you kind of mix it up real good, that starts to help the soil start absorbing water again. It breaks down, like there's this little thin layer, waxy layer over the soil, which is what's preventing it from absorbing the water. And once you soak it for a while, it starts to break down that waxy layer. I am not super knowledgeable about this. These are just things that I've read online from reliable sources about soil and it being hydrophobic. So sorry for giving you a shot of the sun there. So yet again, that is one thing that I never dealt with in Ohio, was hydrophobic soil. I had no idea what that was. So anyway, back to what was I talking about? Okay, back to what I was talking about. So my goal for this morning was actually to put soaker hoses in both beds, both sets of containers, and let them soak for several hours while we were at church. The problem is I didn't really do a good job of inventorying what water hoses we had. I knew we had soaker hoses that I could do it with. I didn't know what water hoses we had because I needed to hook up the water hose to the spigot and then to the soaker hose. And so I had to kind of figure out what we had this morning. I thought that this short hose or this short hose would work, but they neither do for various reasons. I thought this one would work because it's what we had up here previously, but if I remember now that I tried to screw it on, when we took these off last year, we could not get this unscrewed, and so I believe we actually just cut it off. But the bad thing about that is that unless we can get this piece out, we can't screw this back in. So I was going to use this one to go to this bed over here, but I couldn't do that this morning. So what I did instead, I did what I could do. We had this short piece of hose, and I hooked up the timer, and then I attached that piece of hose, and then I tested my soaker hose. It works good. And then I went through and laid the soaker hose in all of the containers and tacked it down. And what I tacked it down with, let me show you over here. This is a little thing that we kind of made up a couple years ago. It's our homemade landscape staples. And it's this. It's just a heavy gauge wire. They're not quite as heavy as landscape staple wire is, but it's just a heavy gauge wire cut into some short pieces, and we just fold it in half and then push that down on top of the hose. And, you gotta finagle the hose to get in there and stay down, but you can't see that super well because of the netting, but there is soaker hose wrapped around in every single one of these beds, and it's running right now. I set it to run for a couple hours. The hope is that it will fill up these beds while we're at church and kind of get that soil soaked. So also, as you can see, there's a net over this bed. Since I could not really add water, set up the water on this bed, I decided I have time. I'm going to go ahead and set up the insect netting on this bed. And this is just some relatively inexpensive netting, an insect netting set kit that I ordered off of Amazon. Just, looked for something with some halfway decent reviews. And let me see if I can find. There we go. this is what the package, the label and the package look like. It comes with these fiberglass pieces, and you attach them with these little silver pieces. You slide one down each side, and you can kind of modify it a little bit. You can do 4 pieces, 5 pieces, 6 pieces. I actually ended up doing 7 pieces. I believe this is going to be where I'm going to put beans, and they're bush beans, so they're not going to get real tall, but I also wanted my hoops to be taller. I'm considering actually adding an 8th piece to these, especially on the ends, just to make sure that they're tall, because you really don't want anything, I really don't want anything touching the plants, I guess. We're not worried about frost just yet, but especially during frost, if things are covered, you don't really want anything touching it. I don't know, I'm probably thinking ahead a little bit too much there, because we're not there yet. That's 2 months away. Anyway, so anyway, it comes with the little green pieces of fiberglass pole and the connectors. It comes with a couple different types of clips. It has this type and then this type. Although the instruction sheet only shows this type, I don't know what the purpose is, but whatever. I did it the way that I thought I wanted to do it. And then it comes with this netting. So it's a 10 by 30 piece of netting, which works really well for this bed. I could actually probably extend the bed a little bit lengthwise. I don't think I would extend it any more widthwise. And I am going to have to be mindful if I add another, if I make the end pieces taller, I have to be mindful, because you want the insect netting to come all the way down to the ground. So you don't want something that's only the size of your bed, like say this is 4 or 5 feet wide by 10 feet long. You don't want it to be just the size of your bed. You need to take into consideration that it's got to lay over this hoop. So it's got to be extra wide, extra long. So this piece of netting is 10 by 30. And what I did is at the end, there's a lot of slack at the end. And I stretched it over, and then I pulled it at the end and gathered it up. And I'm using a paver stone that we have, and I've got another one on the other end. So the ends are all gathered up, and then I went through and added clips to each hoop so that hopefully it will stay on. So I'm not going to link to this. I will maybe later, after we go through a season of using this, and after I feel, if I feel like it's a decent quality product, then maybe we'll link it up and share it later. We're not, I would love to share the products that we use, but also I don't want to share products just to share them. You know what I mean? Like, I want to share products that I feel are of good quality and are worth your money. So we're going to test this out before I would ever share the link with you, and we'll give you an opinion later on how it fares in our severe Oklahoma weather. So anyway, that is pretty much it for the morning. So that's pretty much it. That's what I've got accomplished today. For now, I'm gonna let these containers soak, and then later today after church, maybe this afternoon or evening, I'll work on trying to soak these other containers, and then we will maybe put some seeds in today. If not today, I'll definitely be able to do it maybe tomorrow or sometime this week. And that was kind of what I wanted, was to get these beds ready as quickly as possible, and so I could get some things planted. So that's where we're at for now. I'm gonna be done for the moment, and we'll come back later after church at some point, and if I do more today, I will be sure to share that. All right, so we are back. So the last time I videoed was this morning, around 9 o'clock, before I quit and got ready for church. So I went to church, had some errands to run this afternoon. It's now about 8 o'clock. I've been out here for 45 minutes to an hour to try to finish some things up for the day. So I'm going to show you what I finished up today, and I'm probably going to be done for the evening. So one thing I did was I went ahead and planted seeds in all of these containers. In these containers, this is going to be the cabbage bed. And these are the seeds that I'm using from Southern Exposure Seed Exchange, and the variety is Early Jersey Wakefield. They're supposed to do fairly decent in hotter weather, even though, cabbage does still need some cooler weather. So the cabbage bed, the other thing that I'm probably going to do is put a shade cloth over it, and I'm going to have to figure out a way to put it over top of this netting, not laying on top of it, but like create some sort of structure or frame or post or something, just so that it can be flat across the top of the bed, so that the cabbage can have some shade when it comes in. So did that. You can see how the netting will work in order to get to the beds. You just unclip from the bottom up and kind of clip it up, and then you can work in the beds as you need to. So I will pull that back down before I'm done for the day. I have noticed a couple of grasshoppers are inside the netting. I'm not sure that, it's not sealed to the ground, so I'm not sure that it's going to be like 100% exclusion of insects. However, if it is excluding most of them, I'm going to be happy. But that's one thing I worked on. And then the other thing is one of my errands I had to run, because the hose I wanted to use for these containers, this red one is one that I bought today. The one I wanted to use, could not use because a piece is stuck in where I would need to screw it. So I bought a brand new hose for this, which we'll probably need that hose anyway. I don't know if we can get that piece unstuck. So bought a hose today, and then I ran the other soaker hose. And so now these containers need to soak for a while and get good and moist. And then either tomorrow or Tuesday, depending on what our evenings look like, I will plant beans in these beds, and then I'll put the net over it, obviously. The beans I will probably not do a shade cloth on. I might. I did order 2 just in case, but cabbage I think definitely needs it. Beans, we'll see. And it also depends on how long our 100-degree days last. So that's it for this evening. I think I'm going to be done once I put this netting back down, and I will probably follow up tomorrow after I get beans planted. So, all right. Okay, I thought I was done. However, there's one other thing I'm going to do this evening before I'm done for the evening. So this is our timer. We got this, the second garden we did, I guess in 2024, or no, that'd be 2023. Anyway, we got this in that year, and it worked really well. We were able to pretty much use it all season. It worked great. That's what I hooked up today. However, we also have this timer, which I think we maybe bought last year or in 2024. And the difference is this has 4 different outlets, and each outlet can have its own schedule for watering. And so the reason I think I'm going to switch is because this bed with the cabbage, the cabbage I just planted, it got soaked pretty well today. I actually ended up turning on the soaker hose for 3 2-hour stretches, so 6 hours in total, and it got soaked really well. And so just now when I set this bed up for the beans, I've got this running on a 2-hour stretch. Well, I really want this to run for 6 hours, and I want to run this again, but only maybe for like a couple hours. But I want to run it again because I just planted the seed. So at the moment, they're kind of on different schedules. I want this one to run maybe overnight, And so I think real quick here before I go in, I'm going to switch out the timer, and that way they can be on different schedules for now. They'll probably eventually be on the same schedule, but for now, I need this one to run longer and this one to run shorter. So, all right, everybody. So it is Monday evening, somewhere around 6:15, 6:30. So third day of this fall garden project. I checked the beds this morning, and the timer ran perfectly. It ran all night, or not all night. It ran for, I think I set it for 4 hours on the second bed, and then both beds went right back to the schedule that I set, which is every morning for 3 hours. So, and I came out here this morning when it was supposed to be running to check it, and it was running. Sorry for the shadows. I'm trying to figure out the best way to stand. That evening sun is a killer, so that's probably better there. Anyway, so I'm back out here this evening. Tonight's goal is to plant the beans in the bean bed, and then put the insect netting over top of the bean bed, and then we should be good to go for a little while. I may share a little bit about the other netting that's been up for a couple of days now, and I'll just show you kind of how it's been doing as well. So here is the insect netting that's been up for a couple of days, and I can already tell that I'm probably not going to be super happy with it, but we're going to do the best we can to try to get through this season with it without having to buy anything else. I'm not super happy with it because, for one thing, this end post, the end post or hoop, I guess, down there, it's the weight of the netting or the wind or whatever is like making those end pieces want to go inward over top of the beds. Not a huge deal. I mean, it's still keeping the netting up. It's still protecting it. I just don't like that. And I'm thinking of maybe trying to stake it down some. I have to think that through a little bit, but try to see these little clips have holes in the top of them. I was thinking about trying to tie something down and like stake it down to the ground down there or something to help it stand up, and just do that on both ends. We'll see if I end up doing that. The other thing I noticed earlier is that I think this is a pretty cheap netting. Well, I know it is, but there's already holes and runs in the netting, and it's only been 3 days. So I'm not sure that this netting's really going to hold up to our Oklahoma weather, but we're going to try. It is keeping some grasshoppers out, which is good. Like I said yesterday, I have seen some bugs in there. I'm kind of expecting that there to be some in there because I don't have it really sealed to the ground, so I don't know. It's a learning experience. We'll figure it out as we go. But that's kind of my opinion on the netting right now. I'm not sure. It might last this season, but we've got 60 more days plus 70 more days until first frost, and so I don't know if it's going to last 60 or 70 more days, because fall weather comes, we're probably going to get some storms and winds and things like that. But we will do the best we can, and if I have to get more netting, we'll see. But so the next thing I'm doing is going to be planting the bean seeds, and this is the bean variety I have. It's Blue Lake Bush, and I got these from Southern Exposure Seed Exchange as well. I went with a bush bean because bush beans produce like 1 or 2 big harvests a year, or growing season, and so you'll get a bunch at once, which is really good for canning or freezing, preserving. I will not be canning beans. I have not yet learned how to use a pressure canner, and you have to pressure can beans. So whatever beans we get, if any, I will be freezing. But I went with the bush bean partly because of that, because I wanted to get a bunch of beans at once that I could preserve, but also because they don't get very tall, they don't need support. I just wanted to be able to grow something underneath a netting like this. If I went with pole beans, I would have to give them support, and they would grow really tall. And I didn't want to deal with that. So this is what I'm getting ready to do, is put these beans in the ground. Sorry, I was trying to show you what I was doing there, and I got the camera moved away. It's hard to film and watch what you're doing, not on camera at the same time. So sorry about that. So, but what I think I'm gonna do is put 2 sets of 3 beans in each pot, and so you can see I put some over here and I put some over here, and I'll let them sprout, grow. If needed, I'll thin them down. But that's the plan for these pots. Okay, slight change of plans. So you saw what I put in the other pot. Well, I thought to look at the seed packet again, and it says to, put them in basically like 3 to 6 seeds together. And then once they sprout, you thin them out to about 4 inches apart. So I know that I'm taking chances here by not sowing multiple seeds in one spot. I am taking a chance that some of these won't germinate. But what I decided to do after that last pot is I'm actually going to just go ahead and plant them in the spacing that I would want them. If they only need 4 inches of space in between, then I can fit quite a few seeds in each pot. So that's what I'm going to do. So this is probably what the rest of the planting will look like. All right, we are done. I'm going to try to get this video in before the sun completely goes down. It's setting at the moment. So let me flip around here. So I finished planting all the pots with Blue Lake Bush Bean. And then I put the hoops up and put the netting on. So for now, everything looks good. I'll just walk around here, give you a little view of it. I did learn better when putting this netting on how to more effectively stretch it out. And when I did this one, I actually tucked in the ends first and then tried stretching it over and everything, and it's not bad, it's okay, but on this one, what I did was I actually attached the clips in the middle hoop first, and then I kind of stretched to the outsides and then did this part last. And still not perfect, still could use some work, but I feel like it stretched a lot more effectively that way. And I'll probably redo this one at some point, Of course, I'll be in and out of it a little bit once, if as needed, basically. And so I'm sure it'll get re-stretched on there at some point. But let me finish walking around here and just give you the full 360 of everything. Okay, so that is pretty much it. It's all ready to go. Now it's a matter of time, just waiting and praying that the Oklahoma weather doesn't destroy the nets before everything gets grown up, and well, just praying for a good harvest. All right, so that's it for this video. I will try to keep you updated as the season goes on, and good or bad, I'll kind of try to keep you updated on what's going on with this little garden.